All right. It looks like this might be live, but I'm not 100% sure yet. If anybody can see me, can you put something in chat saying hello or something like that? Whenever I start these things, it seems like it takes maybe up to 30 seconds sometimes before the lag in the stream kicks in, and then I have no idea if it's actually going or not. It looks like I'm getting an ad on my iPad, so I think it's working. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Daniel's saying he's hearing voices in his head. Not sure what that is, but we'll go ahead and get started since it looks like things are working. All right. And Demon326 is waving hello. All right. So a lot has happened in the past week, and I think that might be the understatement of the century. We have coronavirus. I mean, I know I mentioned it last week, and it was already kind of affecting things a little bit. And some countries were starting to have a lot more impact besides China, but didn't imagine it would explode quite as much as it did. So one thing I wanted to say at the beginning of this is I've worked from home for 5 or so years. I live at home with a family. The family gives me a lot of social interaction. I usually tend to get out once or twice a week at least and do some activities, and on the weekends we go out and do things. Things have changed a lot. Like, first of all, if you're working from home now and you're not normally working from home and you're more of a extrovert, unlike me, who's an introvert, it might be quite a kind of culture shock because you're used to all that interaction and you get a lot out of that. For me, when I'm with other people, it takes a little bit out of me. So I'm actually more energized when I'm alone and have that time. I still like interacting, but it's the opposite for me. So if you're feeling bad, if you're feeling worried or lonely or any of that kind of stuff, please reach out. The community, the Drupal community, but also your local community, your work community. We all need to be in this together. And my hope is that everybody will be like me, trying to reach out and help people, especially if you kind of see somebody drop off the radar too. Call out to that person, say, hey, how you doing? Talk to them, get on a video chat or call them up, do something like that. Maybe send them some funny pictures or something. There's one of the fun things that has come out of this so far. One of the few fun things is the fact that people are doing very creative TikToks or TikTok, I don't know, whatever that thing is, and YouTube videos and things like that. So plenty of fun stuff to share, plenty of TV series to catch up on. But we're in it together. Let's do our part to try to stop this disease, stop this virus, and prevent people from, like me, who have I have Crohn's disease, and I'm actually on 2 drugs. So a lot of people are on 1 immunosuppressant, and so they're immunosuppressed on average. I'm actually on 2 immunosuppressants at the same time. One of them is a biological drug. The other one is Imuran, which is, a lot of people that have kidney transplants, things like that, have that. But I'm on 2, so I'm a little bit more worried than most. I've been kind of self-quarantining in a sense for a week or so now. I've only gone out once or twice to get some essential groceries. Essential to me is Diet Dr. Pepper, that kind of thing, but also, trying to find some toilet paper when I can. But anyway, we're all in it together. Please do your part to prevent the spread of the virus. And we'll see where things go over the next few weeks. The one constant will be I will be doing this live stream, as I am today. Another thing that I did for this is, one thing I remember from 2008, and I posted a video on YouTube yesterday about it too. There were a lot of people who lost jobs that were not people that should be fired for any reason. It's just the market and the economy was in such a bad place that companies, even good companies that are not trying to, hurt their employees or not trying to put profit above everything else, companies ran out of funding for certain things, and a lot of people lost jobs that really, they weren't doing poorly in their job. They weren't even on a list of people who would be fired in these kind of cases. But sometimes the reality hits, and if something like that happens, the markets haven't been doing amazing. Yesterday it had the greatest percentage drop or something like that since the Great Depression. I don't know if we're gonna end up that bad, but it definitely is a bear market, and that can affect hiring, and it can affect people who are on staff for projects. can affect contractors. I'm a contractor right now, so that's a little worrying for me. So I made my books that I have, Ansible for DevOps and Ansible for Kubernetes. They're both free this month. So I posted a link on my blog to those 2 books. If you're interested in automation, infrastructure, Kubernetes work, Ansible for DevOps introduces you to Ansible and managing servers, that kind of thing. Ansible for Kubernetes is actually kind of like a 3-in-1 book. It teaches you Ansible, it teaches you Docker, and it teaches you Kubernetes. And it starts all of them at a very basic level. So I'm excited about this book. I've been working on it for a while. And hopefully a lot of people are, I've already given away, like 7,000 copies or something like that between the 2 of them, maybe more than that now. It was kind of a surprise how many people grabbed that deal, and I'm happy to do it because I want people to be able to learn a new skill, especially if they're like, let's say you're a Drupal developer, and maybe the market kind of contracts a little bit, and you're all of a sudden out of a job. If you can have other skills like automation and DevOps in your toolkit, that could help you finding another position or finding some gig work in the meantime. Or if you're like me, just automating your own Mac in the meantime. So those are free. Check those out if you're interested. I also spent some time over the past week. I was getting kind of upset because sometimes I would run a drush command and it would take like a minute or 2 on this live stream. And you can see this is my little CPU monitor here. This software that I use for live streaming, OBS, and maybe I'll do a video on how this is all set up at some point. It uses the CPU for all its encoding on the Mac. And some people are like, well, just get a PC. It's like, well, that's one option, but there's a lot of other things I do on my Mac that I can't just run Windows full time. But the problem is that OBS doesn't use the graphics card on a Mac. So it does all this rendering on the CPU, which leaves less CPU available for other tasks like running Docker and all this other stuff. And the big problem was that Docker's OSXFS file system that's built into it when you share a volume in a Docker container on the Mac is extremely slow and uses a lot of CPU to do file copy tasks. So anything that can be done to reduce that makes things faster. So I spent some time between last episode and now. I worked on issues number 18 and 22 to benchmark some other local development tools. So for now, I tested my current custom Docker setup. That's this one at the top. And I tested Symfony Local Server. I think it was Oliver Davies who mentioned that. He said that you could actually run a local PHP server using your computer itself along with a MySQL Docker container. So I've tested that out. And I tested out DDEV Local. It's called, the local environment for it. And I even tested out Drupal VM, which is a more traditional, run a virtual machine on your computer and share things in with NFS. And at first I just compared those 4. And I actually have pull requests open in this repository with all the configuration changes I did for each one. For Drupal VM, you compose or require Drupal VM, and then you add a config file, that kind of thing. And so there's a little bit of extra cruft that you add into your project for it. But it was the fastest in every case. And that's mostly because it's really well tuned. I've spent years tuning it for this particular use case. And it uses NFS for the file system share, but it also has more caching built into it that makes things faster for development. However, Drupal VM takes, maybe a minute or so, or it takes 5 or 6 minutes the first time and then a minute or so every other time to start it up, which is annoying for me. DDEV Local was not too much slower, but it was actually slower in some cases than even the current Docker setup that I have. So it wasn't that much improvement, and it added a bunch of files in my repository that I like to have as little additional cruft on my project as possible. For a bigger project, I wouldn't care as much, but this is my little personal website. I don't want to have to maintain a tool alongside of it. Symfony Local was not super hard to set up, but it had some weird idiosyncrasies, and also since it's running the PHP server, there's some things like the install, which uses the drush CLI, actually uses a lot of, it bypasses all that caching, the op cache caching. And even if you set it to manually go, it still is the slowest overall. It was just as slow as my current Docker setup, so that wasn't a huge benefit. But it is faster for page loads because it's just using your system PHP instead of a Docker container with a shared volume. So there are some benefits there, but some of the configuration for it was a little annoying, and I didn't like having to do the extra stuff for it. So the last thing I tried was actually changing the setup for my local system. You can use the same Docker Compose file. So I'm using this Docker Compose. Eventually, this could be used in production because it's pretty secure by default. I'd probably uncomment these so that it reboots if the container dies. But it doesn't need to use a shared volume because the code is baked into the image in production eventually. Right now, I think I have all this commented out. But eventually in production, I could have that. And then I can use an override file to put volume mount options in. And this is something I learned about Docker is you can have an override file and it'll basically merge these bits of YAML into the main Docker file. This is all JSON. YAML is basically JSON, so it just merges the two JSON objects into each other. So this volumes would go into here, basically like that, once you run it. So I tried that with NFS and with a couple other tools, BGSync, which is a tool maintained by I don't know if he still does Drupal or not, Cameron Egan's. It's a tool that he maintains that does Docker synchronization with Unison, and also with Docker Sync, which is dockersync.io. And they were both a little faster in general, but they both require you to have something else running that's synchronizing your code between your computer into a shared volume. It syncs the code into a container, and then that container's code into a shared volume, and it all uses Unison. So one of the big disadvantages for me is every time you start up your environment, it takes like a minute or two for a Drupal site with 30,000 files. It takes a minute or two to do all that initial copying, and it's kind of annoying because it's the same thing with Drupal VM. I like to bring up my environment and start working right away because I'm often switching between projects throughout the day. I don't want to take a minute or two to do that. If this were a big project with a lot of developers and it was the only thing I was working on, I'd be a lot more open to little micro optimizations and having more configuration. But for my personal side, I don't like that too much. So in the end, I ended up going with NFS. And as with many things, I popped out a blog post about this. So if you're interested in using Docker for Mac with NFS, I put all the reasoning, the benchmarks. You can see that NFS, I don't know why this was, but the installation was actually faster than with Docker Sync and BG Sync. And I wonder if that has to do with file system caching or something like that. It was a little bit slower than those two for loading Drupal pages, but it was a lot faster, almost 3 times faster than the normal delegated mount. And so I'm sticking with that for now. And in this post, I also show you how to use it with Mac. You edit your exports file and you edit the NFS configuration, restart NFS, and then this is how you use it. If you're interested, a lot more information there. And one thing that I want to mention, I keep showing you all these issues, like issue number 18 is all these benchmarks. And you might be like, oh, I want to find out more about that. I want to see these pull requests. I want to see this code. One cool thing that I did was, because I don't see any reason why not to, is this entire repository, the jeffgeerling.com code repository with my Drupal 8 site and migrations and all that, is now public and open source. So any of the code that I make, you can take and look at and modify, use in your own projects, whatever. Technically, you could use my theme, but my theme has some custom stuff for my content, and maybe everybody really loves the jeffgeerling.com theme, but it's pretty basic. But everything's public, so you can go back and look at these issues. Heck, you can even contribute if you want. If you want to fix one of my issues, that's fine with me. But it's public and open source now. And on the theme of the local development environments, there's a survey that anybody watching the stream, I would encourage you to go and take a look at, the local development survey. There are 442 responses so far. We're trying to get as many as we can so that we can see what people in the community use for development. You can find that link on this blog post. And also, I'll have this all in the description. And Loic, I guess. Hello to you too. And Daniel says, great. That is great. Another couple things I worked on this weekend were in past episodes, I was thinking about not using code filter in Drupal 8 and instead using a different code syntax highlighting tool. And the reason for that is code filter is basically barely maintained. And the big problem that I have with code filter is I have a dark mode theme now. Well, this is a gist from GitHub, so it's not a big deal. But I have a dark mode theme now. And when I have PHP snippets in my code, they turn out like this. And, I'm looking at it on the live stream. You can barely tell what this says. Unless you highlight it, then it's inverted colors. And even then, it's not that great. And code filter doesn't have a lot of options for code highlighting and all that. So I was looking at something else, but it turned out to be, I would have had to do a lot of text mangling to get things like this kind of code block to work with something else. So for now, since there is a code filter module for Drupal 8, and since it kind of works, I decided to stick with it for now. And that actually removed two of these missing filter plugin filter null messages. So it was a double whammy fix. At some point in the future, I will find out a way that I could switch from code filter to something else. I'll probably write a script that goes through all my content and changes PHP code blocks to like code blocks with a code style PHP or something like that. But for now, I'm kind of shelving it. That's in every migration I've done. There's always issues like this where it's like we'd like to do this, and then you find out when you get to it, it's like, well, actually, it would take you probably like 4 hours to do that, and we don't have the time for it. So maybe we'll just stick with the same thing we did before. It happens, and that's going to be the case here. Let's see. And then I was looking into this issue. There was still one more of these notices for missing filter plugin filter null. And who was it? Mstrelon, who is Mstrelon. I don't know if it's Michael or whatever his name is. He was mentioning here and in Slack, in Drupal Slack, I posted a question that the problem is the markdown, there's a markdown hook in the markdown module that looks at the D7 filter format migration, and it changes, it basically maps the old Drupal 7 filter name, which is filter markdown, to the D8 filter name, which is markdown. And this will work if your migration is called D7 filter format, but as, so this is Michael Lutz actually had the final suggestion here. The problem is that my migration is not called D7 filter format. It's called upgrade D7 filter format. So I don't know. I mean, this is kind of a bug in the Markdown modules migrate upgrade process. This shouldn't be hard coded to this migration because it could be any migration that has this filter markdown in it. So what this should do is like loop over all the migration filters and sees. That could be a really bad idea because it could cause a big slowdown in a migration. I don't know if anyone on the live stream knows about big O notation, but actually there's a very good lesson in the real world right now teaching about big O notation. Basically in programming, there are things that you can do if you have if you have code that says if this then do that. That would be O to N, where every time you process one thing comes out. But all of a sudden, if you have an array of things and you say for each item in this array, if this then that, then that can change the big O of it. If you have a loop in a loop, then you start having recursive, exponentially growing big O, which can be O to the N squared, which you see this curve here. As you get more items, let's say more nodes in a Drupal site, if it has to loop over every node and do something to it for every operation, that can slow down your site considerably. I've seen this happen a lot of times, even with migrations. When you're writing custom code for migration, if you loop over the wrong thing, all of a sudden your migration goes from like 10 minutes to 10 hours. That's big O hitting you in the face. And we have a similar thing with, COVID-19 Info Live. We have a similar thing going on with COVID-19 because it grows exponentially. You can see, let's get rid of these guys. You can see that this chart is kind of going up with that same kind of curve. I don't think that the virus is thinking about programming itself, but if you look at the USA today, you can see that curve is like even more than n squared, it seems, but this is exponential growth here. Hopefully this will slow down and come to a peak at some point. But there's our programming versus, see, this is in China, the curve has flattened and things are getting better now. But this is our programming to coronavirus lesson of the day, I guess. So that's that. And let's go back to theming. So I have the site set up locally. I did a tiny bit of theming just to get the main components of the site together. And I noticed that menus aren't actually migrated from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8. So now at this point, there's two things I need to manually migrate. One is the views. So this home page is extremely barren right now because I have no views on it. And I'm missing the footer, and I'm missing the search box, all that kind of stuff. And I'll have to migrate the main menu, either by hand, or I found that there's a way that you can set up a migration using a CSV file, which I might do. So for now, though, I just want to throw a couple menu items in here. So I'm just for theming purposes. I'm going to add a couple links to the main menu. And I think I have the main menu placed underneath the title, but since there's nothing in it, it doesn't show up. And I said earlier that this local environment was faster, but we'll see if I'm a liar or not. Here it comes. All right, so what is jeffgeerling.com? My current thing is blog projects and about, so I'll add blog/blog, save. This is definitely faster when I'm not live streaming, that's for sure. Okay, blog was added, menus. I'm gonna add two more. Main menu. As I said, Diet Dr. Pepper is my emergency supply. Add link. And then projects. Save. And what I think I'm going to do is I open an issue for this, and we'll see, maybe we can do it today, but otherwise I'll do it some other time. To migrate the main menu, you can create a custom migration that migrates from a CSV file like this, and then it will import menu items directly. I don't know why that isn't something that is in the Drupal 7 to 8 migration, because you'd think that once you have content, the menu items can migrate. Although two of these menu items are coming from views, so I don't know if that's the case. One more item. I don't know why when I'm in the menu and I click add link, it sends me back to the main menus page, which is annoying because I want to still be in the main menu area. Blog projects and about. I'll make this one weight 1 so it's after the other ones. I could do that with the little grabbies when I get in the main menu, but I know that it sorts by alphabetical if they're all the same weight. So let me go home and see if that main menu is showing up. There they are. So I have blog projects and about, and things are starting to come together a little bit. It looks a little bit more like the actual jeffgeerling.com. So the first thing I'll do, I guess, is I'm going to go to a blog post, and let's go to one, a really simple one. This might be a little less simple, I don't know. This one's not bad, it has comments and everything. So I'm going to go to this blog post, and since it's migrated, I can just go to the path here. Whoops, that has 2 slashes. I definitely don't want that. All right, and I'm going to keep this window open. Let me make sure, okay, you can see everything in the stream. So first of all, here's the comments. They definitely don't look quite as nice as they do here, because the format, the input formats are messed up because of that migration issue with the filter null thing and the markdown module. So let me go to, where is it? Text formats. And hopefully if I can fix that issue, then this won't be a problem anymore. I think it's markdown and maybe full HTML that are having issues, or filtered HTML. We'll see. Okay, markdown, yeah, so it's saying the filter null filter is missing. So I need to add markdown here manually. And it's code filter, then markdown, save configuration. And let me see, this one doesn't have a warning, so it's okay. And that one doesn't have a warning, so it's okay too. All right. I don't know why that's showing up there too. All right, so let me refresh this, and I think that it should show the content now. So that's good. So we're getting closer here. There's this member for 7 years, 11 months. No idea why that shows up by default in Drupal 8 posts. I think there's an issue for like, why is this still a default thing on sites? And I think it's hard-coded in a template somewhere still. I don't know, but we're going to need to get rid of that, obviously. This is the submitted by information, and for my current site, I actually just have the date because everything on the site is by me, so why do I care about submitted by Jeff Geerling? And I have a custom date format for it. But other things are starting to look the same. That's because I have code filter enabled, and everything else is kind of themed similarly. But we're missing the further reading block. That's going to come later. So these tags are missing their styling, and I think that is in the blog.css file. So I'm gonna try to add that now, so that we can get at least that kind of stuff working the same site. And it's not in sites anymore. It's in themes, Jeff Geerling, CSS, and blog.css has, let's see, tags. Field name field tags is what it was in Drupal 7. And the other thing is that this blog.css file is not loaded anywhere. But what I want to do is load blog.css on every blog page. So what I need to do that is add it to my libraries. And the version isn't actually required for these, but I'm adding them anyways, just for fun, I guess. So I'm going to say blog. This is the blog library. And in the info.yaml, I don't know why this is required here as well. I thought in the documentation it said that libraries weren't required in here too, to attach a CSS library to a page, but it seems like it is. And then I have to clear caches for it to pick it up. But then, where is it? In theme. So in preprocess page, and I don't remember Drupal attach CSS to node type. Drupal 8. It's easier for me to do this than to look up all the variables and junk because just because other people have already done it and they have the array keys and all that. This is how I theme. He might theme a little bit better than I do, but this is definitely for Drupal 7, so that doesn't help. Add CSS to a content type. Node get type. Okay, so that makes sense, I guess. That's for hook node view and hook preprocess node, though. I could do it there, I guess. Oh, I guess I can do this. All right, so the node should be available here. Node, and I guess I should do if that, then node, if node get type equals blog, then I'm going to attach the library and we'll see if this works. Blog. So this library name comes from here, the libraries, and that is set in my libraries.yaml file. And if anybody is a themer and sees me doing outrageously horrendous things, you can call it out in the comments. It might not mean that I will fix the outrageously horrendous things, but at least you tried. All right, so if I do that and say flush all caches. And you can do this from the command line too. You can do drush cr. But when I'm in the UI, it's just as simple to do it in the UI since I'm already here. One thing I do like about Drupal versus a lot of other systems is you can do things in the UI or in the terminal, which makes it open a little more to a wider audience of people who might not be. I'm very comfortable in the terminal, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people are not as comfortable, and so they'd rather have a button to click. And Drupal usually gives you a button to click in addition to something in the terminal. Ha! Daniel says if they care that much, they can open an issue and fix it for you. Yes. Especially since it's all open source now. You got a problem, you can open an issue. All right, let's see if that actually did anything to the tags. No, but that could be just because classes are off. I'm going to open up the CSS inspector and check if that file was added. Style sheet, blog. So it is adding the blog.css style sheet. So the problem now, and this is for every style sheet and every style I've been going through, this is the same thing. This is how that field was in Drupal 7. And if I were a semantic themer and doing like libraries and things like that, I'd probably do this differently, and I'd call this like tags or blog tags or something. But I'm just using the fields, the field classes Drupal gives me because I'm lazy. So in Drupal 8, this is field -- name - field - tags. So what I'm going to do here to see if this works is I'm just going to take that and do a find and replace and do field - name field tags. And that would be, looks like everything else is the same, but field item needs to change to field underscore item. So I'm going to do that. And I'm also going to do this, find and replace it with underscore. And I'm seeing that right here, field underscore item. And you guys probably can't see everything here. You can see most of it, but I'll bring this back over, replace all. Save that, and if I refresh the page, let's see if that works. Otherwise, maybe I need to flush caches again, but I think I have it set up so it's not caching, it's not aggregating. But that looks like I'm actually lying. Let's see. All right, I'll flush caches, because at least these things should be applying. Unless I'm completely blanking on something, but I don't think I am. Oh, flushing caches during the live stream is not fun. This only takes like 5 seconds when I'm not live streaming. I forgot to quit mail again. Better quit that. Anything that's not necessary should not be running. Also, every once in a while you might hear a little thud, something like that. That's not me, that's my kids who are directly above me. This ceiling is the floor to their playroom / schoolroom, and it can be a little loud sometimes. Okay, so things are better. This is definitely better. We have, I made these look kind of like tags. Get it? Because they're tags. They're like little tags with a hole that you can tie on to something. That's about as skeuomorphic as my website gets. But I think I'm just missing dark mode. So if I go here and I look at, where are we? Field name. Yeah, so I'm going to have to do the same thing. I'm going to replace those, replace this. Field -- name, field tags. Replace those. Okay. And then if I refresh, I wonder why, like if I'm refreshing, it should be picking up these new styles. Let's see if it does this time. No, it's not. Well, that's annoying. I think I have, let's see, where's my settings file? Sites, default. So I have settings there, but I have settings.local.php, and that has preprocessed CSS off. It's not using render cache, it's not using the dynamic page cache, it's not using the page cache. So I have no clue why this is not refreshing the CSS for me. Maybe that's maybe like the file itself is being cached by the browser. Let's see, network. So I have blog.css in there somewhere. I wonder if I have this console open. I forget where there's a setting for like don't use, like ignore cache or something like that if I refresh with here. I'm just doing this because I don't want to have to flush caches every time I make a CSS change. That didn't seem to do anything different. Elements, sources. No, there's nothing in there. So I don't know why that's the case. It should be. I'm trying to remember if I try Option Command R, which in the old days used to flush. Yeah. So Daniel's saying, did you clear cache with Drush? And I didn't. But the point is, I don't want to have to clear caches every time I change one line of CSS. Because right now, if I look at, I don't want to go there, configuration, development, performance, I have CSS aggregation turned off, so it should be refreshing the blog.css file directly. And man, that's slow. And if I look here, it is loading in the head. It's loading each CSS file. Oh, it is using a little thing here. I wonder if that's caching it somehow. I don't know. If anybody can think of anything. Otherwise, I'd have to flush caches all the time, and this is going to be really slow. Let me try just flushing CSS and JavaScript and see if that makes a difference. It could be one of Drupal's other caches too that's holding this stuff. The performance page. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't want to turn this off. And it shouldn't be doing that because my settings file doesn't have that. However, I think that in Drupal 8, this is another difference with Drupal 7 and 8, these could be checked in the interface because the database has those checked, but in reality, in the settings file, it's not. But this is one thing that I sometimes am annoyed by with Drupal 8 because what you see in the UI doesn't necessarily mean that it's true in the real world. But it's a mixed bag. I like how Drupal 8 has better performance settings out of the box than Drupal 7, but I think this was the problem for me, and that's what trips me up, because this is saying cache the page in the browser for an hour, so it would be an hour before this change picked up. But maybe I'm just missing this completely, because these are still not rendering with dark mode. Because on jeffgeerling.com they render like this in dark mode. Dark mode. Let me make sure the dark mode CSS is applying here. It should be because the page is dark. Head. Go down here. There's dark mode. So it's definitely there. And then if I look at, what was the CSS for that? Field name, field tags. So these are definitely here. If I check out inspect field item A. So, oh, that's interesting. So I see what's going on here. It might have been working without the flush cache, but what is happening is the dark mode CSS is being applied first, and then the blog is on top of it. In Drupal 7, apparently that wasn't the case. It was applying them in the other order because the libraries weren't like layered on the way that they are in Drupal 8. So here's another thing that sometimes you'll run into if you're converting a theme. I'm going to need to, in my dark mode CSS, give a more specific identifier than in the blog.css so that the dark mode overrides it. So that's a little bit annoying. Let's see how many things are, just these 3. Okay. So for these 3, what I'll do is I will just add a div dot here. And that should give it enough specificity to override these rules for this CSS. So let's see if that works. I think this should work with a refresh now. We'll see. There we go. Okay. So now we got the tags rendering the same. Let's see what else we need to check on. Up at the top, oh, the page title's not here. That's interesting. We definitely need page titles on blog posts. I wonder, there's a rule in the front page CSS that would override that, but yeah, front is applying here. That is not right. Okay, so in Drupal 8, to apply something to the front page, I thought all I needed to do was say, if it is front, attach this library. But apparently is front is happening on this blog page. That doesn't seem like it could be right. What is the new Drupal set message? Drupal set message. Drupal 8. I don't have the devel module turned on, but I might turn that on so that I can do this easier. They are replaced by the messenger service. I just want to see what if isFront is true. Oh goodness. I just want to make a quick message. Here, I'll do this. Drupal messenger. Page is front page. Save that. And refresh this. I shouldn't be getting a message here, but I should on the front page. I don't know why. If anybody in the comments has seen anything obvious here, like this library, the front page library, should only be attached to the front page. However, I wonder. Let me go back to my theme settings. I wonder if these things are applied to every page on the site. So I shouldn't have these. But I'm not seeing a message here either. It's slightly, so this is saying pages front page. If I go to blog, well, if I go back to that other page, and I refresh, I'm not seeing that. Okay, so what I'm guessing is happening is these libraries are being applied to every page on the site. So if I delete those and flush caches and we wait a little bit, and they'll show up. I'm going to look at the documentation while that's loading, because that was confusing to me when I read it. Drupal theme info.yaml libraries. Okay. So I'll look at these two things. So libraries. Okay, so that's defining a library, but using a library is what I'm worried about. Okay, attaching to libraries all pages. So to be available everywhere in the theme, add it to your themes libraries. But otherwise you can attach a library using like this method. Okay, so I think this should work now. Why is this? Oh, it's still flushing caches. My goodness, that's taken forever. I can close that. So it looks like that was the issue. By having it in this libraries array, it was adding those libraries to the whole site instead of just that page. So now this should be working, and that front page CSS shouldn't be applying. I don't know what I was, oh yeah, so here's the title. So now if we compare these two pages, things are looking pretty similar. Let me refresh this so that message goes away. And the next step would be to modify the template, or actually getting rid of this member for thing. I don't know where that's coming from. I think that might be under content types blog post. I might need to turn on the field UI module to look at this. Or actually, member for, I think it might be in my like user profile thing. Let's see. Blog post. Display settings. So I want the author, I want the publish date to show, but I don't want that member for. So how do I get rid of that? Is it under people? No, configuration, people, account settings. I remember doing this for one Drupal 8 site a long time ago. And I don't, actually, I need to update this. I don't want people to be able to create accounts on my site. So I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to export configuration really quick, just so that I don't forget about that. And the command for that is down here. since I'm changing, I don't want people to be able to create accounts on my site, and I'll probably forget to ever do that setting again in the future. And then I'll all of a sudden end up with thousands of user accounts on my site. They can't do anything, but they'll still be there. So I might as well get rid of that for now. But there's, I don't know how, so here's another resort to Google thing. I'm going to say Drupal 8 disable member for. Here we go. So let's look here. This one's a newer one, 2012. How to hide this. People, okay. So I'll need to go here, and I need to have the field UI module enabled. So I'm going to enable that module. I'm actually going to do that via Drush if this ever finishes up. All right. Okay. Let's see what it has here. And here comes those blocks again. I don't know why they keep getting thrown in the mix. I'm going to add, what was it, this, get diff. Yeah, get add that, get status, get commit -m. Only admins should be able to create accounts. All right, so that changes there. Let's see. What was I going to do? Oh, get rid of this member for. So I need to enable. I need to PM enable. I think that's it. The field UI module. And if you see flickering in the background, that's because the printer in the basement is printing. Whenever it prints, it kind of takes all the power out of my office somehow. So let's see. I will go to the field UI. So it's under configuration, people, account settings, manage display. So I'll wait for this to load. Account settings. And there's no manage display yet because this has still not gotten enabled. And Daniel's mentioning you can disable that in the form display. That's what I'm trying to do. Seems like it's getting slower as time goes on too. Like it was like 10 seconds. Now it's like 20 or 30 seconds. Okay, it finally enabled the field UI. So I should be able to see that in here, I think. Now it's rebuilding all of Drupal 8's caches again. Okay, so here we go. Manage display. Well, all right. Member 4. I want to drag that to disabled. And I don't want the user picture to show up either. That was easy, I think. It has these little spinny things, which makes me nervous. Okay. Nope, that's not there yet. Let's try that again. All right, save. We'll see if that fixes it after it finishes saving. And then I'm also going to have to export configuration again. Not migrate import, config export. But we'll check and make sure that's correct first. Now this should be gone, and then it should just say submitted by. Which is better because I can easily change the submitted by, but I don't think there's a way to change that member for text in any simple way. Hi Hicham or Hichum, or I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce your name that well, but hello. Let's see. So that's gone. So I'm going to config export to get the change that I just made to the field display settings. And then let's fix this line as well. I hope that this is just a template. I think we converted it to a template in Drupal 7. Field node created. Okay, so to override this field, I have twig debugging turned on, and that is enabled in your development.services.yaml. Parameters twig.config debug, and To make sure that this development.services.yaml file is being used, you have to, in your settings.yaml, tell it to add it to the container YAMLs, which I have right here, which you probably can't see. So here, it's right here. So since I have that enabled, it's giving me all this extra output. I actually said in a previous episode that this was never in Drupal 7, this feature where you can see in comments in the HTML where the field output is coming from, but I was wrong, because in 7.33 or something like that, I think somebody, I forget if they mentioned it in YouTube comments or somewhere, there's actually a way to enable this debug output. I think there might be a contrib module that you can do that with. And if I can find what that is, I'll post it. H for short, yes. So hello H, much easier for me. Anyway, so I have this output here showing me which template I need to override the submitted by. So I'm going to find that and grab it and copy it into my theme. So I'm going to say field --node --created .html, and the HTML I can't spell. Themes classy, templates, field node created. So this is the field, or this is the template. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new template file named the exact same in my theme, save it, and call it copy HTML field --node --created. So now I have field node created. You'll notice I still have these other old PHP templates in here. That's because I haven't converted them yet. So they're there to remind me to work on the comments and nodes. So what I want to do here is I want to change the display. And what it's doing is it's displaying field name created. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to override this to be, I can close these. I'm going to override this just to be the date. And I think I can do that in here. What do I have? Field items, field.html.twig. I don't know if I'll have access to the date. I remember in Drupal 7, I had, in Drupal 7 I had a theme override for submitted. This is more complicated because I don't have, I thought this was going to have like the text submitted by and then Jeff Geerling, like the user link and then a date. But this is just field content, and I don't want to like parse it out with regular expressions. That'd be insane. And I don't know if I have access to the full node in here. So what I'm going to do is go back to my trusty Google and say Drupal 8 override submitted by, and see if someone's written about this before. How do I change the submitted by text? It looks like there's an issue for this too. Let's take a look at the issue really quick and see what it says. It says it's been fixed. Theme node submitted. I even commented on this. That was in 2009, more than a decade ago. Let's see what they say. So variables submitted. That doesn't help here though. It was different in Drupal 7 for sure. And this was for Drupal 7. That's in 2009. How to change default text strings, maybe. Okay, let's see what this says. This was 2006. Wow, that's... See, this has been a problem in Drupal since the beginning of time, and it still is not simple. I don't want to do this. I don't want to enable new modules to do that. So where is this coming from? That's my question. My next question. Node field created. There's got to be a simpler way because I don't want to have to hack this template to try to do something weird. I mean, I could just put, like, is there a twig? No, I don't want the current date. I need to get the date information out of here. There's got to be somebody that did this. Node submitted by Drupal 8. There's a project for this. There we go. Here's an article about it. Sometimes you just got to re-Google it. And let's see this. This is 3 years ago. All right. This is for article type. Maybe I could do that. Is this in? It says it's in Node, but this is a field. This is a field template. This was from 2016, but let's see. Maybe it is in the Node template. Go back here. Field node. This is node.html.twig. So I can do node type blog post. So I'm going to try. So I did do this in node.tpl.php back in Drupal 7. I'm going to try grabbing node.tpl.php. No, node.html.twig from classy right here. And I'm actually going to open that up and copy it instead of copy and pasting. So I'm going to copy this file, go back to my theme, which is down here, and paste it in here. And let's see what I get in node.html.twig. Submitted. So it does have it here. It's weird that in the text here it's showing that that submitted information is coming from... Oh, okay, so I was looking at the wrong... No, I wasn't. I don't know what I was looking at. Anyway, it looks like I can change it in the node template, so I'll just do it there. And I'm going to delete this, delete file, because I don't need that. And I'm going to change this to date. Change that to just have the date and save it. This is going to get me closer. I need to flush caches to pick that change up. But one more thing that I'll have to do then is change the date format. I think one of my kids is crying, in case you can hear that in the background. Oh, and Demon326 is saying that I could use a filter to choose the format. So let me see if that's, let's see, twig date filter. Date. Format date time maybe. Let's see. Huh. This would be nice if that's all I need to do. I was going to change the default settings in Drupal so that I could choose the format in there. But if this is the case, I could just say date. And what is the format that I use on Drupal 7? It's been long enough that I've forgotten the shortcuts for all these. But I think it's like MJY or something like that. Uh-oh, I did something wrong. Apparently I did something very wrong. Docker PS. Docker enter 8AD. 8AD. I'm going into the container because there's a problem. Apache 2. All right, what's going on? Text can be translated. Oh, apparently I can't translate a date. Let's try that. Save. Let's refresh again, see if that works. So if you ever get these white screens or an unexpected error, look at your Apache logs and it should give you some information. Okay, failed to parse this. Oh, goodness. Apparently this is a field and it's not just the date itself. That's annoying. I wonder if there's... for now, I'm just going to do it this way. Date, save, refresh. This time I think it'll load because I'm not filtering a field using a twig filter. It would be nice if it were that simple, but it seems like it might not be. It is loading something. Something's better than nothing. Okay, so now it's just the date, and I was hoping that I could use that because Twig is like, I'm very used to Jinja. Jinja is used in Ansible as its templating engine, and Twig and Jinja are basically like brothers or sisters or cousins, or I don't know what they are, but they're very similar. You can do filters, like if date is an actual date object or a date string or something, you could do a filter like date, whatever that filter is, but it looks like date in this case is a full field structure in Drupal. So anyway, I'll see if there's an easier way to do that in the future. For now, what I can do is go to, where is it? Basic site settings. Maybe it's user interface. Metadata. Oh, here, regional and language. I think it's under here. Date and time formats. That's what I'm looking for. So I can go to date and time formats, and I can set the default. So right now the default for short or medium is like the day of the week, and then the full date, and then the time. And I don't really like all that. I just want to have this format, March 2, 2020. So in here I can change that. If it ever loads, man, 12 seconds, 13 seconds, 14, 26 seconds total to load that page. That's painful. All right, so this is using the medium format. I'm gonna edit this. I'm gonna change it to, I think it's MJY, but I could be wrong, or maybe it's not M. D. Oh, it has a preview thing. So D, no, D, no, March, no, it's M. So M, but I want the full month, so I forget what that one is. D, comma, Y. But I want the full month, which is something that I forget. Maybe it's like, I don't know. We'll find out in a second. Month, month, month. Month, month. Month. Day of the month. Month. F. F. That's what it is. FDY. Or is it J? Which one is the, I don't want zero padded. One of these two is zero padded date. The other one is just the day. Yeah, J. So I want J, which is the day of the month without leading zeros, because otherwise if it's like the first, it's March 01, and that, in this particular format, it looks a little funny. So save that. And then I'm gonna have to export configuration yet again. So just waiting for this to finish up. And I'm going to get this ready for the export so I can have that running. All right, I'm going to export the config, and I'm going to go back to this page and make sure that it looks correct now that I updated that date time format. Oh, things are theming, you kind of go all over the place. Now this is interesting. This is all messed up now, but I'm not going to worry about that yet. This is correct, which is good. However, the theming is a little different. Something's different about this. Let's see. Inspect. So submitted, p.submitted. So in Drupal 7, this had a paragraph around it. In Drupal 8, I'm guessing it does not. Instead, it's a div, div.node underscore submitted. So I'm going to change that and close these. Submitted. So what I want to do is say dot node underscore underscore. So I'm going to find dot submitted and change it to dot node submitted, replace all. Save that, refresh. And the config is updated, so I'll have to make sure I commit that. It looks like we've hit 11 o'clock. It's been about an hour. So if this is working, I'm going to finish that off, and then after the video, I'll commit those changes to the config and push them up. But that didn't actually do anything. Of course not. Dot node submitted. Oh, this is a span. I don't know why it had an A. I guess that was in case I had like submitted by Jeff Geerling. But in Drupal 7, it was in here. Oh, dark mode. Okay, dark mode. Oop, I just hid that. I didn't want to hide it. I just hid it again. You can tell it's getting to be past the hour because my brain is stopping working. Okay, that there. I just want to look for submitted. There it is. node __. Is that what it is? Yeah. Div. Okay, save that, refresh, and I think that'll do it for us. And as usual, as this is refreshing, right below me, right here, there should be a subscribe button. If you liked what you saw today, if you want to see videos like this, or I do a whole ton of different kinds of videos, go ahead and click the subscribe button. You can also get the notifications. I don't do it. I don't like notifications, but if you do that, that helps me to get this content out to you quicker. And that still didn't do anything, but I think we're going to wrap this up anyways. I hope that you liked the video today. Please stay safe, stay home, button up, unless you're in a region that's not having problems anymore. But if you're in the US or most of Europe or most of the rest of the world, try to do your part by preventing the spread of coronavirus. And hopefully we won't have to deal with this too long, but I'll keep doing these live streams until we get this migration finished. Luckily, we're getting a lot closer. Didn't get to views today. We'll get to views next week probably. But we have the blog mostly themed, so that's good. We'll talk to you later.